Yes, it's very, very low in mother's milk, and the suggestion is that and there's been no evidence, no scientific evidence has ever been brought forth to show that fluoride is an essential nutrient. None. To demonstrate that something is an essential nutrient, you have to starve the animal of this source, and if it's a nutrient, then they develop a disease. There's no disease that develops with a shortage of fluoride, which is, as you would imagine, is just as well if it's so low in mother's milk. As far as tooth decay is concerned, this tooth decay is not caused by lack of fluoride. Tooth decay is caused by acids in the mouth, usually created from the sugar being metabolized by bacteria, Streptococcus mutans, and it's the acid that then attacks the enamel. And if it attacks it enough, then the bacteria can get into the dentine and you get tooth decay.
Yeah.
So it's not a disease caused by a lack of fluoride, it's a lack of dental care, particularly relevant in poor communities with poor access to dentists.
And a lack of information and discernment to really cut through the media manipulation and the nonsense, because the number one source of calories in the United States is high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
And when you have that sugar as your number one source of calories,
Right.
you're going to shift the terrain, the biological levels of different bacteria in your system, and you're going to produce the bad bacteria versus the good bacteria. So that shifts, you get and these bacteria will produce these acids. Because if you go to primitive cultures where they are avoiding sugar, you just do not see dental caries. And even whole countries where they tend to have very low sugar, like Korea. I mean, you try to find a cavity in a native Korean, they're just not there. It's like 1% of the population has cavities.
You're absolutely right. We need education, not fluoridation.
Yeah.
And that education would have a double dividend of avoiding the high fructose sugar would not only score a huge benefit with dental decay, but also with obesity.
And health.
Yes.
And degenerative diseases, right?
I mean, we have a huge problem here. When you've got teenagers getting diabetes, type 2 diabetes, you think of the cost that's going to be. So fluoridation, if we had the political will, is as easy to stop as turning off a tap. And we could have this double dividend if we use the money that we are squandering on chemicals and equipment to deliver this stuff, and all the tanker trucks which are going around the country, and all the money that's spent on propaganda, on promotion by the government, by the Dental Association, American Dental Association, and so on. If we took that money and put it into education to avoid what you've talked about, high fructose syrup and so on.
And just optimizing your diet.
And better dental care. I mean, brush your teeth after meals, all those things, floss your teeth and so on.
Well, that's important, but really, when you go to these countries who are eating right to begin
That's
with,
right.
they don't do those practices. It's really an artifact that needs to be implemented when you're choosing unhealthy lifestyles.
You know, it's funny, there's an irony here. In the 1930s, Weston Price, who was a former president of the American Dental Association, which pushes fluoridation, wrote a book and established just what you said, that indigenous peoples around the world, from the Inuits to the Aborigines to the Maoris and so on, had perfect teeth until Western diets, refined sugar and all those other things.
And it's actually, from my understanding of his life work, around the turn of the 19th century, from 1900 to 2000, is when he was a practicing dentist. And he saw this enormous increase in dental decay. And he made the correlation. It was actually due to the introduction of processed foods.
Yeah, in the 30s.
So, and then he went around the world to document this, and because there were many countries at that time who had not been exposed to that type of food.
Right.
And
That's right.
The book is phenomenal because it's just massively filled with these pictures that document that.
Yeah. So, you know, as far as tooth decay is concerned and health generally, better diet, better diet. And as far as this issue is concerned, when you've got 23 studies which shows a lowering of IQ, and you've got
a lowering of IQ from being exposed to fluoridated water.
But not, sorry, we haven't had yet an IQ study because they're not doing them. The countries which are fluoridated are not doing any health study, practically no health studies. They're far more concerned about protecting this policy for some reason than protecting health. But when you've got levels of fluoride, natural levels of fluoride, not so much higher than the levels at which we are fluoridating, then it raises the question, which is more important to protect, your children's teeth or your children's brains? I mean, we got some pretty wonky evidence that ingesting fluoride may be reducing tooth decay. I don't think the evidence is very strong scientifically, but you've got two sets of evidence. One set of evidence says the promoters think that fluoride lowers tooth decay if you swallow the fluoride, and you've got this other set of evidence, which from China and India and so on, which says if you swallow, your children swallowing fluoride may be lowering their intelligence. I mean, where are you going to hedge your bets here? What's the sensible thing to do?
Well, the sensible thing is to implement the precautionary principle and err on the side of caution.
If ever the precautionary principle should be applied, it must be in the case of fluoridation. If you believe in the precautionary principle, and incidentally, I think of San Francisco, which has actually incorporated the precautionary principle into its charter or what have you, and yet they've been fluoridated for years. There's a contradiction here. If you believe in the precautionary principle, then turn off that tap. It's not doing much good. They concede, the promoters concede that it works topically. We have topical treatments available, including fluoridated toothpaste, and we've got plenty of evidence accumulating that fluoride at certain levels definitely causing health effects, and the issue comes down to whether there's an adequate margin of safety. And I would put my scientific training on the line to say there is not an adequate margin of safety to protect the whole population from known health effects. So,
part of the problem is that there's individuals who may drink a few cups of water a day, but there's other individuals who may drink a gallon or 2 gallons and be exposed to the amount of fluoride in that water supply at levels 5 times or greater, so that your margin of safety, which you refer to, essentially disappears.
That's right.
Because you're getting to toxic levels now. And that's, we're just talking about the water supply, which is really what we want to focus on, because we absolutely are both incredibly convinced that this is a winnable battle. In fact, there's no doubt in my mind we're going to win it, but we can only win it with your help, and we'll tell you some specifics, repeat that again. But that's only one source of fluoride. And you know, for though most everyone watching this, we're educated, we know better, we're not going to be drinking the municipal water supply that's fluoridated. We're going to have reverse osmosis systems. We're going to have other bottled water sources. We're going to be able to avoid it. But what we're really doing here is we're protecting the people who don't have the resources, the low-income families who can't afford those strategies,
right.
and really who are suffering most of the impact of this tragic decision that was implemented 50, 60 years ago.
You know, back in November of 2006, the ADA actually sent around an e-gram to an alert to its membership saying, do not recommend recommending that parents do not use fluoridated tap water to make up formula. They actually said that, and a few days later, the CDC followed suit. Don't use fluoridated water to make up formula. But what they didn't do is they didn't inform the people, the public. So there's millions of parents out there that are using tap water to make up formula, oblivious of the fact that the agencies that promote fluoridation in this country say, don't use it for this purpose. Well, how can you fluoridate tap water on the other hand, and manage to educate all the people to do this? And how can low-income families afford to use bottled water for this purpose? So the whole thing is absolutely bizarre. So, you know, just as you said, we need masses of people. And Joe, you could reach them more than I can. Right. Masses of people to get informed upon this issue. But also, in addition to that, we need scientists and we need doctors to read the literature. I mean, they can understand.
Well, you've compiled a list of professionals, healthcare professionals and scientists who signed on. I'm one of them who signed on the statement.
2,800.
2,800. So if you have the credentials and the scientific training, we encourage you. And we'll put a link on this to address that, so that you can sign on and we can increase that to even a higher level.